In this video, I want to try to explore how free-to-play friendly MTG Arena is over a longer period of time if you are a semi-competitive player and want to craft tier 1 meta decks. If you are a casual player who enjoys making fun janky decks, then you should quite easily be able to enjoy the game as free-to-play. This video will cover about 3 months worth of daily quest and weekly free packs. But before we get started, a few disclaimers. First off, I bought the welcome bundle, plus an additional estimated 9 packs. The rest of my cards are all from gold I have gained from daily quests and daily ICRS cards. I have not gained any ICRS cards or gold from paid events on this account. Secondly, I have done a single draft on this account which resulted in not a single card that is worth to actually be crafted. In fact, I ended up getting 3 Narcomoeba from the draft as my rare cards, so that was a really bust. Thirdly, as I'm writing this script, I am sitting on 18k gold I not spent yet, while waiting for the upcoming set to release. The 18k gold should cover most of the cards I've gained from spending real money. And since the draft did not grant wildcards, nor move the wildcard tracker forward, the data should be as close to free to play as I can make it. And a final disclaimer. When I'm talking about having enough of a certain card, I'm referring to the minimum copies you should own to make the deck, unless I state otherwise. For example, you don't want 4 Teferi in a control deck. I don't think I've seen a single Teferi deck actually run more than 3 copies, so 3 copies is the baseline of how many Teferis you actually want to craft. Oh, and I will not be covering common and uncommon cards. You should quite easily be able to collect all common and uncommon cards that are required to play all tier 1 standard decks. And finally, I will be covering the rare lands last. So let's start with how many mythic wildcards I would need in order to complete all current tier 1 decks before the next expansion hits and changes the meta. The tier 1 decks I'm referring to is Jeskai Control, Boros Aggro, Boros Angels, Drakes, Phoenix Drakes, Green-White Tokens, Gogaria and Mono Red. First off, if we're gonna talk about tier 1 decks only, then we have to add an additional 5 mythic wildcards that I have used on fun mythic cards that are currently not included in a tier 1 deck. I will ignore any mythic card I ended up wasting on a metacraft that I received a 5th copy on later in order to even it out. Anyway, through the magic of editing, let's see how many mythic wildcards I would need in order to complete the current tier 1 meta decks. And the number is 8. So only 8 mythic wildcards are actually required if I wanted to craft all the current meta decks before the expansion hits. Let's move on to the rares. When it comes to the rares, I've only used 6 rare wildcards that would not be included in any tier 1 deck. Let's first take a look at the number of rare wildcards I will need to complete the current tier 1 decks, without including the missing rare lands. I'm saving those for last. And the number is 4. So only 4 creatures, spell, enchantment, etc. am I missing in order to complete the current tier 1 decks, excluding the rare dual lands. But before talking about the lands, there are a few things that I want to say. So what I want to say before we get to the rare dual lands is that MTG Arena is fair when it comes to collecting and crafting cards if you are a free player. Obviously, very few people are actually trying to collect all tier 1 decks in the meta and would be happy with just owning a few of them for free. Anyway, let's talk about the annoying elephant that is the rare dual land. If you are playing casually and just for fun, then no, you don't need the rare dual lands. But you will find it hard to find anyone arguing that rare dual lands are not straight up better for any deck no matter what. Now we could talk about the casual queue matchmaking and how rare lands affect your matchmaking, but the video would be too long, so let's ignore it, and since this is aimed towards people who want to make competitive decks for ranked, talking about the casual matchmaking won't help. Anyway, let's check how many rare dual lands I'm currently missing for all current tier 1 decks, and the number is 15. So it's not too bad, but you could see that there's no way I would be able to complete an entire collection of all tier 1 decks in a single rotation or before the next expansion drops as a free player. Oh, and for the record, over 50% of my rare wildcards have been spent on rare dual lands alone. Now you could always argue that in real life you would have to spend about €1,000, $1,000 in order to buy all current tier 1 decks, while I spent under €20 and have the majority of the cards that are required to make all current tier 1 decks. To summarize this video, yes, it is possible to make several, but not all, current tier 1 decks as a free-to-play player. What will limit you will always be the rare wildcards, either for your creatures and spells, or for your dual lands. However, if you are just a free-to-play player who enjoys playing janky decks, then MTG Arena should allow you to actually have fun without having to spend tons of money on the game, if any. And on the plus side, the daily quests are easy to complete compared to many other free-to-play card games for brand new players. On a final note, if you truly are a competitive player who needs to own all the competitive decks, then you should be able to acquire them without breaking the bank. But be prepared to spend some money to fill out the rare lands. This will be largely true even after the 5th card protection is added. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll catch you next time. This is Project signing out.